It's a Gundam!
Draco here, and welcome back to It's a GunPla, the show where I build GunPla. So, we're continuing our Virtue conversion for Nadley. Actually, scratch that, we're continuing the Virtue armor for Nadley. Saying conversion implies something different. So, I thought about it for a while, and I think I'm basically out of slander for Gundam 00, considering I'm pretty sure the other 5 episodes of this are like an hour. Because honestly, it'll just be more of the same, complaining about characters that got a ton of screen time, that were pointless to the story, sub-stories that they never explained. Like this one dude who in season 1, he was part of the bridge crew, he was a frequent character, and he was either a cyborg or a robot, and they only unveil this at the end, and then he gets blown up like 5 seconds later, and then they never do address that again. Actually, I guess I do have more slander. So, I thought that I would talk about the good things, more good things from Gundam 00. So, the single best story in the whole anime was Graham Acre. His transition from, being an ace pilot to the leader of the Overflag unit, and then his descent into madness and obsession after Howard and Daryl die in season 1, capped off with him. Now, technically it's a draw, but I don't want to call it a draw. He beat the Gundam Exia in a flag powered by a false GN drive. I'm sorry, but the Gundam Exia was like 200 years more advanced than the flag. Or something like that. It was significantly more advanced, and the fact that he beat that they essentially managed to defeat each other, I'm counting as a win for Graham Acre. Because he only had the beam saber. He only had one beam saber that he had taken from the Throne 9 in that. Because this dude, in just a pantheon of badassery, he fought the Throne Gundams. He took Throne 9's own beam saber and sliced its own arm off with it. And then passed out because he had crossed the G limit and torn up his own body with G-force. And so then, when all the other members of the task force had been given a GNX, instead of a GNX, he had that GN drive installed into his Overflag, and the only weapon installed on it was that GN beam saber. And so at the very end of the season, Setsuna defeated Alejandro Corner. We're just on the heels of Ribbons Allmark, his betrayal speech to Alejandro. And then, out of nowhere, shows up Graham Acre. And it's an absolutely perfect moment, because Graham Acre, as he was twisted because of Celestial Being. Their quote-unquote peace plan had twisted this man into an obsessed, not quite a psychopath, but still, he was coming close to psychotic. And then the fact that Setsuna, despite having the big GN sword, and that also was a beam rifle, plus his Vulcans, he couldn't beat Graham Acre, who only had the beam saber and a limited energy supply. Now, there is one handicap, and I'll say it out loud. Setsuna had used Trans Am, which the Trans Am system basically runs a GN drive at its maximum capacity for, I believe it only lasts for a minute. And once Trans Am has been activated, until the GN drive can replenish, it's going to run at a diminished capacity until it's replenished its supply of particles, which means any mobile suit running off a GN drive is going to be greatly weakened. But still, weakened Exia or not, he could still use all of his weapons. And still, Graham Acre is still destroying his internals from the G-forces in that overflag. So, again, I'm still giving this as a win to Graham Acre, just entirely based on that. And then in Season 2, when we're reintroduced to Graham Acre as Mr. Bushido, the leader of A-Laws, or however you pronounce it, because I always wondered why they didn't call them arrows. Anyway, but then he was twisted even more by the leader of A-Laws. He put on a mask, abandoning his identity as Graham Acre, becoming Mr. Bushido. And almost as soon as the celestial being reappeared with its Gundams, he began relentlessly pursuing Setsuna and the 00 Gundam. And their fights kept getting interrupted, and it was just the simple fact that he was pursuing them in, what do you call it, in a head or something like that, that only had the 2 beam sabers and a high mobility system. And then later he upgraded to the Masurao. And the Masurao, and then its upgraded form, the Susanoo, which turns out to be that original GN flag upgraded like crazy. And they never showed what that thing was really capable of. As you read all of its abilities, the horns on its head that looked like a samurai helmet could apparently generate a beam halo and shoot it. He had the cannons in his chest. I forget what they call it. Was that the Tri-Punisher? Yeah, that was Tri-Punisher. So they all had Masuro had the Shiranui and Unryu sabers that could combine together into a double-ended Naginata. Which the Shiranui and the Unryu, they had the beam generator power Daryl in them. And when Shiranui and Unryu combine, they're called Soten. The Tri-Punisher, the Beam Chakram, and then he also had a GN Claw. And he did use like half of that in the anime. But it's a loss because the Masurao, especially, well, the Susanoo is specifically when its face got blown off and it revealed that it was an overflag. It was one of the best reveals in the show. And it was perfect because then, by this point, you're being exposed A-Laws and the Innovators and everything. And when he reappears in the Trailblazer movie, and then helps with the fight against the living metal aliens. And then finally, in one of the sequel mangas, he's the final pilot of the Gundam Exia, which I think had been rebuilt for the 4th time. If I remember right, Exia Repair 1 appeared in the first few episodes of Season 2, still missing an arm, and with a shoddily rebuilt head after the GN flag had cut his head off. And then Exia Repair 2 appeared in the last episode of Season 2, dueling the O Gundam after Ribbons Allmark stole O Gundam's GN drive off of the Double O Gundam. Which actually, going back to slander mode for a second, the Double O Gundam has to be one of the stupidest mobile suit designs I've ever seen. His primary engines are mounted on arms coming out of his backpack hanging over his shoulders. And I said this very thing when they unveiled the Double O Gundam. I'm like, why doesn't somebody just rip one of those off? And then in the last episode, that's exactly what Ribbons Allmark did. When Setsuna got in close to finish him off, he literally ripped off the GN drive. But I mean, the Double O Gundam, its base design is really cool. And don't mind me, I think my chair's about to give up. And it about threw me on the floor. But anyway, that design, it's just so stupid. And then the Double O Riser, it's basically the Double O Gundam with these big piles of junk hanging off the GN drives, basically getting in his arm's way, and then a jet hanging off of his back. Which, if all the equipment on the O-Riser were as essential, why not make the portion the pilot's in detach so that, the Double O Gundam doesn't have the unnecessary equipment to sustain the operator of the O-Riser. And the whole thing just looked dumb, dumb. Which hurts even more if you see the Gundam 007 sword in the 7 Sword G. Because, basically all the equipment in the O-Riser was built into that Buster sword for the 7 Sword and the 7 Sword G. So it's like, if they could put all that equipment in that Buster sword, why did they need the O-Riser? Because that Buster sword could be used as a normal sword, it generated a GN field, and could be mounted underslung on the arm to be used as an oversized shield. And so my entire question is if that is so utilitarian, why on earth would they decide on the O-Riser instead of that? It makes no sense whatsoever. But other than the GN drives over its shoulders, the Double O Gundam has one of the best and striking lead Gundam designs in the whole franchise. And that says something, especially because there's better designs like the Strike Freedom, but they're just not as memorable as the Double O, and I'm not entirely certain why. But then again, Gundam's been weird because it took how long for Gundam X and Double X to get some love in the Master Grade line when we had how many versions of Strike? Anyway, so you know, that's about all I'll say on that one. I mean, I could rant some more. Like the Curios Gundam, like they in the show they made this big deal about how unveiling certain weapons and features they weren't supposed to do it. And I kind of appreciate the idea that they're going to try to hide functionality so the enemy has less intel. But like Curios' shield being a grabber claw with a retractable blade, it's like, I don't think that information is really going to help you. And keeping that quiet, because you know, Dynamis having a giant sniper rifle that can snipe from Earth to orbit, yeah, it's better to keep that a secret. Curios having a claw shield with an extra blade, I don't see how keeping that secret somehow promotes the plan to unite the world and end all warfare. So anyhow, I'm trying to be positive, but I'm back in slander mode. So I guess we'll keep it up. So then, other dumb mech designs. The Gundam Arios. The upgraded Curios, the Arios. Basically, they took the Curios' claw shield and put it on the Arios' shoulders, so he can only use the claw in mobile armor mode. Which, fine. That's not as bad as other stuff. And plus, he had those cool wrist-mounted guns and some other features. But I just never understood, what is the point of dedicating so much weight on a transforming Gundam to hiding that claw weapon that's only going to be useful maybe 20% of the time in a hit-and-run attack? But then again, I also question why they developed the gun archer that docks with the Arios. Like, why does this need to be a piloted unit? Why not make it a drone or a remote controlled unit? Because then that's a bunch of excess equipment for the pilot you don't need on there, adding extra weight. No. Of course, this is 00 Magic GN particles that apparently somehow, my chair is driving me crazy. So I might disassemble it after I finish this video. But again, this is 00 where they have Magic GN particles that somehow make crap lighter, so I don't know why I'm arguing logic when in reality there is no arguing logic in Gundam 00, because GN particles literally do anything the plot necessitates. Because the Gundam Virtue, somehow the GN particles somehow make it lighter. So despite its remarkable bulk, it still can function a lot better than a suit with its bulk and girth should. And I genuinely think I'd have been less upset if they were actually using magic. Because, what is it, Knights X Magic or something, there was a mech show where they literally did use magic to power the mechs. I think it was an isekai. At least that one was a little more reasonable, because literally justifying it with magic made it all more palatable. Now, I do like the detail, even though it's remarkably hard to open, that you can open the pods so that you have Virtue generating its GN field, and you can see the yellow inside. I kind of wish it was gold instead of yellow, but I could always paint that myself later if I really wanted to. So now that Virtue has a leg, I think that's where we're going to finish this video up. Thanks for watching. Check me out on Fiction Press for my fantasy story. And I'll see you for the next part, which hopefully will be the last one.